built just for two.
Wait a minute, Aura.
Oh, Flash, I saved your life.
This movie has missiles shaped like Christmas ornaments, a soundtrack written in hotel rooms between rock concerts, and a lead actor whose voice you never actually hear. Flash Gordon wasn't just chaotic. It was a beautiful disaster that somehow turned into one of the most beloved cult films ever made. These are 16 facts about a production that should never have survived, and here's how it happened. Fact number 1. The director didn't want the job. Mike Hodges was brought in late, really late, after pre-production had already started falling apart. He'd made dark thrillers, not campy space operas, but once he arrived on set, he decided to lean into something deliberately tongue-in-cheek, almost satirical. Except producer Dino De Laurentiis had a completely different vision, something louder and more operatic and way less controlled. The two clashed constantly, until eventually Hodges found himself pushed out of the editing room entirely. By the time the final cut was assembled, he wasn't even consulted. The film still carries his name, but what ended up on screen wasn't really his movie anymore. Years later, he'd talk about it with mixed feelings, proud of moments but disconnected from the whole, because somewhere in post-production, Flash Gordon stopped belonging to him. Fact number 2. Sam J. Jones looked perfect for the role. Tall, square-jawed, charming, exactly what you'd cast as an all-American hero. But during a break in filming, things went sideways. Jones got into an off-set altercation and ended up hospitalized with injuries. When he came back to finish shooting, the relationship between him and De Laurentiis had completely soured. Jones refused to return for ADR sessions, those post-production recordings where actors re-record dialogue to clean up the sound. He skipped the press tour and quietly walked away from the project. So the studio hired a voice actor and dubbed over nearly every single line Flash speaks in the finished film. Audiences had no idea. His face was there, his performance was there, but that voice, not his. Fact number 3. George Lucas wanted to make Flash Gordon before he ever thought about Star Wars. He approached the rights holders, made his pitch, and got rejected immediately. So he went off and created his own space opera with desert planets and evil empires and lightsabers. The entire Star Wars saga exists because someone said no to George Lucas making Flash Gordon. That rejection didn't kill a dream, it built a franchise. Fact number 4. The costumes looked incredible on camera, but were held together with hope and duct tape. Wings tore mid-scene, armor cracked during action shots, belts snapped open during takes. The cast had one unspoken rule: keep filming no matter what breaks. If a zipper failed, work it into the character. If a helmet fell off, make it look intentional. Almost nothing you see on screen was as sturdy as it appeared, and half the movie is a triumph of editing and quick thinking. Fact number 5. That famous football scene where Flash turns a royal execution into an improvised scrimmage.
Remove the Earthwoman.
There was no choreography. None. The actors were just told to go for it and figure it out on the spot. They threw props, tackled extras, made up plays as cameras rolled. Brian Blessed started yelling out instructions like an actual coach. What could have been a complete mess became one of the most memorable and joyfully absurd sequences in the entire film. And it only worked because nobody had time to plan it. Fact number 6. Brian Blessed didn't just act loud, he was loud. During fight scenes, he kept making his own sound effects with his mouth. Laser blasts, punches, explosions, all vocalized at full volume. The sound team begged him to stop because they'd have to redo entire takes just to clean up the audio. He didn't stop. Take after take, he kept adding his own noises like a kid playing with action figures. And somehow, that energy, that ridiculous commitment made Prince Vultan unforgettable. Fact number 7. Before Sam J. Jones was cast, the role almost went to completely different people. Kurt Russell passed because he thought the script was too silly. Arnold Schwarzenegger was considered, but his accent was deemed too thick for audiences to understand. Dennis Hopper was in the mix, but his interpretation was apparently too strange even for this production. In the end, De Laurentiis saw Jones on a TV dating show and decided he was the guy. Sometimes the wildest casting choices come from the least expected places. Fact number 8. Max von Sydow had built a career on prestige, playing tortured priests and kings in Bergman films and The Exorcist. So when he signed on to play Ming the Merciless, a lot of people in the industry were genuinely shocked. The role was campy, theatrical, almost cartoonish. Everything his previous work wasn't. Von Sydow himself had serious doubts during filming. He reportedly hated the costume, questioned the tone, and worried the whole thing might damage his reputation. But when the film came out, critics called him the best part of the movie, and over time, Ming became one of his most iconic roles. What felt like a risk became a legacy. Fact number 9. Queen wasn't the first choice for the soundtrack. The original plan was Pink Floyd, but Dino De Laurentiis had never heard of them and wasn't interested. Someone played him a Queen album. He listened for about 10 seconds and said, "Get me the Queens." Queen was given just a few weeks to compose the entire score while they were still on tour. They wrote in hotel rooms, recorded between shows, worked under insane deadlines. And somehow, they delivered not just a soundtrack, but an anthem that became inseparable from the film itself. Fact number 10. De Laurentiis didn't speak much English when he greenlit the project. He didn't read the full script, didn't understand the tone, just liked the visuals someone showed him. Almost every major decision, casting, music, design, was made on gut instinct with minimal communication. That lack of a clear plan could have destroyed the film, but instead, it gave Flash Gordon a chaotic energy that no amount of careful planning could have replicated. Now, if you're enjoying this absolute circus of a production, go ahead and hit that subscribe button because this story only gets wilder from here. Fact number 11. Brian Blessed insisted on doing his own flying stunts. They rigged him up on wires high above the studio floor, wearing wings that weighed nearly 40 pounds. During one take, the rig failed and he dropped. There was no safety net, no padding, just crew members in a near disaster. He survived, shaken but unhurt, and got right back into the harness and kept filming. That's the kind of unhinged commitment that made this movie possible. Fact number 12. Midway through production, a plumbing failure flooded part of the studio. Water poured in, props got soaked, equipment shorted out. Instead of shutting down and waiting for repairs, they kept the cameras rolling and shot the scene anyway. That flooded set made it into the final film, and most audiences never noticed because in a movie this chaotic, a little water damage just blended right in. Fact number 13. The script kept changing, sometimes minutes before filming. At first, the actors tried to keep up, learning new lines on the fly, but eventually they just stopped reading the pages and started improvising. Some cast members genuinely didn't know what the story was about. That improvised chaos wasn't a mistake. It became the texture of the film, the unpredictable energy that made it feel alive. Fact number 14. There's a wedding scene where Ming threatens Dale Arden, and it pushed boundaries that made censors very uncomfortable. The tone came across as darker and more disturbing than intended, and in several countries, including Ireland and Singapore, the scene was flagged or cut entirely. Some regions threatened to ban the film unless changes were made. It barely survived intact in most markets, a reminder that even campy sci-fi can cross lines that make ratings boards nervous. Fact number 15. In certain international markets, Flash Gordon faced bans for entirely different reasons. Censors in places like Malaysia and Singapore flagged the film not for violence, but for imagery they interpreted as occult. Ming's godlike presence, the ritualistic costumes, the dark ceremonies, it all read as too close to black magic. The film was pulled from family theaters, heavily edited, or banned outright. A movie meant as pure camp became one of the strangest censorship cases in science fiction history. Fact number 16. When Flash Gordon opened in the United States, it flopped. Critics were confused. Audiences expecting another Star Wars were put off by the campy tone, and the box office was disappointing. But in the UK, something completely different happened. British audiences embraced the absurdity, the style, the Queen soundtrack. It aired constantly on TV, became a cultural touchstone, and turned into a rite of passage for a generation of fans. What failed in one country became a cult phenomenon in another, and over time, the UK kept Flash Gordon alive long enough for the rest of the world to catch up. Flash Gordon could only have been made in 1980, in that brief window after Star Wars proved space fantasy could work, but before studios figured out how to control it. It's a film born from miscommunication, last-minute decisions, and sheer accidental brilliance. It shouldn't have worked, but it did. And decades later, filmmakers like Edgar Wright, Taika Waititi, and James Gunn have all cited it as inspiration for their own boundary-breaking work. If this chaotic masterpiece brought back memories or taught you something new, let me know in the comments what your favorite moment is. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the films that changed everything by breaking all the rules.